for 1712, filling in for Mime One, welcoming you to the Edge. We've got a fully packed out show for you, so without further ado, let's crack on.
Here we go!
Beyond prime time, beyond pay-per-view.
Hello everyone and welcome to Lexicon's Reviews. I'm Lexicon, and today we have a review for TNA Impact on the PS3.
Beyond prime time, beyond pay-per-view. For the first time, all of your favorite TNA superstars with all their signature moves. When you want it, where you want it, and you're in complete control.
And that's a good place to start with TNA Impact, the controls. These are the easiest yet hardest controls to master. Doing simple grapples are easy, but it will take you some time to get used to the advanced controls. Impact boasts some phenomenal moves. Punches and kicks are a little awkward, and you do miss a lot when you're trying to initiate grapples with your opponent. As far as gameplay goes, Impact both hits and misses. There are no rope breaks, countouts, or DQs. Chairs are laying conveniently around the ring for use, and there are no reversals for the chairs. So, if you get swung at, run. The submission system is interesting. When a submission is applied, 3 face buttons will pop up for each player. The player who punches in the combination the fastest wins, and that determines whether you tighten the hold or escape. The biggest flaw with the gameplay is kicking out of pins. In order to kick out of a pin, you must wiggle the joystick until you fill up the pin meter before the referee counts 3. This is extremely hard to do, and I only kicked out of 1 pin in 20 matches I had. So your best bet for winning is just to not get pinned. Because if you do, it's more than likely over for you. The match types are somewhat limited. You have your usual one-on-one, tag team, falls count anywhere, and triple threat match. But the big attraction is the Ultimate X match. Midway made this pretty enjoyable, and you can also have a lot of fun with it with a lot of players. Kicking a guy off the cables doesn't get old, but I'll tell you what does get old. Don West screaming at me. Real old. The characters are limited too. There are only about 30 characters in the whole game. Midway promises downloadable content in the future, but we'll have to wait for that. About 10 of the characters are locked right away, and unless you play through the season mode, it doesn't make any sense why these characters are the ones that are locked. For example, Bubba Ray, or Brother Ray in TNA. You can add some characters of your own with the Create a Wrestler mode. However, don't expect to create a bunch of WWE wrestlers, because all of the items for your character are preset items. Story mode is the center of this game, and I must admit that it's one of the best I've seen in a wrestling game ever. The story is a little wacky, but interesting. You play as Suicide, a masked wrestler who has just won the championship belt. However, since you decided not to listen to LAX when they tell you to lose the match, you get your ass kicked, and dropped off in a little town called Tijuana, Mexico. There you get your character plastic surgery, and he begins his wrestling career all over. It is here where you find your creative player can run through the season mode and unlock characters. But once you complete that first run through, there is no reason to go back and play it again, since it's the same thing all over. This was a short review for one reason. TNA Impact doesn't have much depth. Midway has been developing this game for over 2 years now, and Impact should have been better than this. It's shallow, feels way too arcadey and archaic. and lacks any reason for me to play this for more than a week besides downloadable content, but that only goes so far. I am comparing this to SmackDown vs. Raw because that is the standard for 3D wrestling game nowadays. If TNA gets a second iteration, I hope that they can make it feel a little more real, since they did boast realism leading up to the game's release. The final verdict on this one is Rennet. TNA fans will love this game. It has the same high-octane action as the real TNA product does, just turned up 5 notches. But wait, there's more. There's a new feature to Lexicon's reviews starting with TNA Impact, and it's called the Impact Rating. The Impact Rating will be a number score for the overall game. I give TNA Impact 6.5 out of 10. I didn't completely hate it, but it's no masterpiece.
I remember when I was a kid, and every kid loves dinosaurs, and you would always be like, oh, I love a velociraptor, I love a brontosaurus, right? And you could have that chart where you could see the scale of all the dinosaurs, and you'd have that one poor guy who was like 5'9", standing there looking nervous next to the Stegosaurus and the Brachiosaurus and everything, and you have that sense of scale. And I think if you're creating a cool video game universe with monsters, you want to have everything from something that's knee-high to him all the way to something that's 10 to 15 plus stories high and everything in between.
The initial backstory for the Locusts was that they were these creatures that came in the night, ghost-like creatures, skeleton, and they would steal children.
There's a myth and a legend in the world of Sarah that would scare their children, that creatures come at night, or the boogeyman will get you at night, he'll take the child away if he's not good. Well, over the history of the planet, that's been happening. They've been taking children and stuff, and so what was a real event has become that sort of mythos of legend of, oh, the boogeyman's going to get you.
In Gears 2, we're going underground, and it was an opportunity to bring in some of these newer baddies, right?
One of the key changes that we have this time around, which actually affected how we balance the game, is the fact that the Locusts have a lot more hit reactions. So when the player shoots a few bullets into a Locust chest, the Locust will actually react in a believable fashion and stumble.
And when you have a big boomer coming at you with a butcher knife and he's running at you, and you shoot him and he ducks his head and puts his shoulder into it, and you're shooting into his arm, and he's still started running against that fire hose, it feels really strong.
I'd say the biggest thing is we have expanded our AI family by quite a bit. There's lots of different creature types, and there's lots of new ways that the creature types interact with each other. For example, there's a new guy called the Cantus.
They have the ability to revive downed teammates on their side, so if you shoot down a Locust but don't finish him, he can bring him back to life from across the battlefield.
If you're in a fight with one of these Cantus guys and you ignore him, you're just fighting the front guys, they're just going to keep coming back.
And if you do enough damage to him, he'll actually spawn tickers to go after you and try to distract you while he does other things.
I love the tickers. The tickers are my new favorite enemy.
It's sort of like a moving, walking landmine. Their whole purpose is kamikaze, so they just kind of scurry around and hide until they see you, and then they'll just charge you, and once they get close to you, they kind of like, flex their muscles on their back and blow up this bomb that's on their back. So
Brumac. Giant monster with guns.
It was the first creature I saw for Gears of War back when I started.
He's seen multiple iterations. We have him in Gears 2 now where his armor's off. We've got versions with his armor on. He's got weapons. He doesn't have weapons.
Talk about iconic creatures, you know. The Brumac is the epitome of every Gears of War creature there is. You know, everything else is derived from him.
Blood mounts are really cool.
One of the most difficult creatures that you'll encounter in the single-player game.
He's crazy, like they kind of walk on their hands, and they've got these crazy weapon feet. That was a tough character to evolve because of the mechanics of it.
We came up with this idea to kind of have it where he's walking on his arms, and his body kind of wraps up underneath, and it's his feet that are kind of sticking out in the front that kind of jab you.
He's a really bulky, like, cool-looking character that the palace guards ride, and when he gets close to you, he's deadly. He's just, the melee attack is insane, and he just kicks at you with these sharp claws on his feet. And
one of the cool things is you can shoot their helmet, and that'll get them all pissed off, and they'll actually rip their helmet off and then charge at you and stuff. So you can actually slow them down if you shoot them in the face, which what doesn't actually slow down if you shoot them in the face anyway.
Palace guards are specific to the Locust Palace. He's essentially a Theron, but a crazy, mental, much more badass Theron.
I think the one word that we do use most often, and probably daily, is badass. I think it's my art director, Chris Perna, it's his favorite word.
Right. So he's got this crazy, shiny armor and stuff. He's highly visible, but he's highly deadly.
Scourge is the new big bad, as we like to call them, in Gears 2, and he's the Locust higher-up, kind of high priest kind of character. The Locust ultimately control a lot of the denizens of the Hollow by using things like pheromones as well as certain verbal abilities, and the Contests are the class of Locust that use this, and he's essentially the leader of that caste. And he's incredibly agile, and he wields a burst pistol as well as a double-ended chainsaw staff, which is very useful for doling out a lot of pain.
Scourge is our ROM 2.0, although he's badder than ROM.
I'd say Scourge probably lays awake at night thinking about ways to hack people apart and separate them and eviscerate them.
Scourge would eat ROM for breakfast, basically, yeah.
I think if you were to compare ROM to Scourge and use cars as an example, I think ROM would be the Humvee, whereas Scourge would be the Ducati bicycle. It's a steak versus foie gras. It's flip-flops versus boots. I can keep going.
with this global cataclysm that blights our galaxy has lasted well into its second century. The Merc, the name given to this element, the source of the black anomalies, the devourer of stars. Many sentient life forms have vanished since Merc appeared in our universe. Even the joint efforts fail to halt something that devours a star system a day. The Merc is creeping toward the borders, leaving us just a few hundred years, or maybe decades. The greatest minds in the galaxy could not determine the origin of this force, or find methods to counter it. There are just scattered chances to survive. The Light Core project, designed to block the expansion of Merc into the star space, was developed through the collaborative efforts of the Sianus, Guardians, and Biosis. This is the story of the warriors of the Vatar Amadan fortress, called upon to protect, during its construction, the Light Core, which later saved billions of people. Their heroism has earned them a place in the Chronicles of Tar, the black grimoire of a dying galaxy.
Merc concentration levels are acceptable to carry on with the mission. The object found 12 sets from the exit point has been identified as a Maetar shell. The object is not active, but there are typical traces of presence.
Thank you. Ice, Seer, your turn.
Confirming Ice's observations. The system is ready for reception, but the shell's silence troubles me. Any attempt to mentally connect with them brings back only the echo of my thoughts.
Guardians, we're proceeding towards the object. Seer, you hear the Merc's whispers better than any one of us. What is happening in the system?
The stars are dead and the Merc inside us all is rejoicing. Can't you hear the voice of the system, Hunter?
Yes, like yourself. I'm trying to understand what has caused this background disturbance.
Hunter, there's a Maetar fighter 12 sets away from our position.
What are your orders? Squadron, prepare for a mental connection, attempting to link the Allies' consciousness.
Hunter, he's screaming out of pain and inability to die.
Who are you? Answer me.
Hunter, he's calling others.
Guardians, destroy him!
Hello there, folks. Have any of you ever heard of Free Space 2 or Freelancer, or even the Wing Commander series? Well, I know I have, and I've played all of the above games that I've just mentioned, and enjoyed them immensely. Dark Horizon for PC, though, reminds me of all of the above, except on a less grander scale. Basically what it is, Dark Horizon is a space flight fighter game based in our universe far into the distant future. The opening cinematic for Dark Horizon reminds me of Homeworld. Homeworld had this great black and white style way of projecting the story forward without having to rely too much on graphics. Dark Horizon, on the other hand, uses the engine to make the cinematics. The dialogue and voiceovers are spot on, and don't sound like your usual phoned-in sound bites that you get in some games, especially for communication chatter. The cinematic explains the game's purpose, Merc, a primordial existence that does not exist in any way, shape or form, is begun to infest the universe. It has taken over and killed many sentient beings and has taken over the Sol system, the original home of the humans. You start the game as a Guardian of the third degree. Guardians are Merc-infested men and women who can control the infestation and use it to find and fight the Merc. In the game, before you can go to the hangar, you can read about your dreams. This allows you to get an in-depth look at your character's previous life. They call this the Alphametrics log, and beside it, they have the branching signals log. The Alphametrics details your dreams, which the Guardians keep for review, and the branching signals is an explanation of some sorts of the dreams themselves. The story of Dark Horizon is deep and